Hello and welcome to Waiting Now, an engaged salon podcast that focuses on amplifying the voices of young people in Sierra Leone. I am your presenter, Adama Morgan. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and pass the word around. Waiting Now, what's happening? In our last episode, we delve into the world of substance abuse and recovery for young people battling with mental health and well-being in Sierra Leone. In today's episode, we're placing our focus on gender-based violence, its causes, consequences, legal frameworks, and support services for survivors and victims in Sierra Leone. Our guest today is Mr. Bob Lamin, the Communications Officer for Rainbo Initiative, an organization that works relentlessly to provide support to gender-based violence survivors. Their mission is to inspire and support grassroots solutions to prevent gender-based violence, whilst working with and supporting survivors with care, healing, safety, and dignity. Good morning, Mr. Bob.
Yes, good morning, dear. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been raining and hectic. How's the Friday so far?
Friday is not easy. I also came to the office under this rain.
Okay.
But this is the time, so we just have to put up with it.
Okay. You have a very nice office space, if I can say.
So we call it the Satellite Rainbow Center. The staff are downstairs. They are having it training now.
What's the Rainbow Center meant for?
So it's here for survivors to come here, people that have experienced any form of sexual assault. They come here, we provide for them free medical treatment and psychosocial support.
Yeah,
yes, we established this center here when we opened this office or when we relocated here from IMAT. Before now, we only used to have one center at Cottage. But when we came here and we realized we have a lot of space and also the cases that go to Cottage are so many, we are overwhelmed. That's why we open here. So for the people that are in the Western Rural District to have a place to go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lamin. I just had a wonderful tour of Rainbow office and I must say it's very amazing and it's a safe space for GBV survivors.
Thank you. You're always welcome to come and it's open up for people that want a safe space to talk about the things that are going through. Quite recently, we just opened a telecounseling center, which is downstairs. So this center receives calls. People call and talk about things that they are going through. We take cases of sexual assault. We take cases of sexual harassment in offices. So you call the toll-free line, 599 with any AfriCell number, and then our professional counselors take you through what are the necessary steps to do.
So when it's just for AfriCell numbers?
Yes, it's AfriCell. We are also working with QCell and Orange to make sure we have it on every network. But now we are only dealing with AfriCell.
The most prevalent forms of gender-based violence among women and girls between the ages of 15 to 49 are physical and sexual violence. For women and girls living with disabilities, the risk of violence are 2 to 3 times higher than their non-disabled counterparts. Hello, Mr. Bob Lamin, and welcome to Waiting Now.
Yes, how are you there? And thank you for having us here.
You're very welcome, sir. Mr. Lamin, you've been working relentlessly and fighting without stop to ensure that survivors of gender-based violence are supported and safe to heal with dignity. How would you describe gender-based violence?
So gender-based violence is a form of abuse or violence that is perpetrated against somebody based on their gender. In essence, is when you think this person is a man or is a woman, then I think I can do X, Y, Z to them and nothing comes out of it. So it's any abuse you commit against somebody based on their gender, being a man or a woman.
So what are the causes of gender-based violence?
Well, the causes are many. One, most times I would like to focus on society. I always say, for example, men most times will perpetrate the violence because society makes it feel that it's normal for men to do to women whatever they pleases. And also some people might want to tell you it's poverty, that let's say a man is not working and he's supposed to provide for the family and that support is not forthcoming. Sometimes they result into being abusive. Some people also blame alcohol or drugs, that when you take drugs and alcohol, it results to gender-based violence. Poverty also sometimes comes in. Like I said, if you are not able to provide for your family, you are angry. That anger of not being able to provide for your family at times leads to that. And also we have tradition itself. For example, we talk about early marriage, which is a gender-based violence. some tradition thinks it's normal to marry a girl off even before they are 18. Those are some forms of gender-based violence.
So, can you tell us about your interventions?
So, as an anti-violence organization, basically we respond and prevent gender-based violence in two ways. The first one is we provide free medical services and psychosocial support through our network of 7 Rainbow centers. That is the responsive part of our work. So anybody, including a man that has been sexually abused, we go to any of our 7 Rainbow centers where we'll provide for them free medical treatment, no matter the cost. And also we provide psychosocial support to them to make sure they heal with dignity and recover from their abuse and trauma. And our preventive part of it is we also engage in community outreach programs. We have outreach interns that goes to communities on a daily basis and sensitize people on how to identify early warning signs. So when you are coming up, those guys that you saw downstairs are the outreach interns. So every Fridays they come to this office to do their reports, and also we take them through some basic training on how we prepare them for the next week. And apart from our direct service delivery, also we are a strong advocate in policy reforms with regards to gender-based violence. We are very much instrumental in the Sexual Offences Act as amended in 2019, and you also talk about the establishment of the Sexual Offences Court. We are also in it, and you talk about the GW bill, which is now an act. So these are some of the things we do, but mainly we respond to sexual and gender-based violence through our Rainbow centers.
So what would you say are the different forms of gender-based violence?
Okay, gender-based violence comes in different forms. So we have sexual abuse, we have physical abuse, we have economic abuse. Sexual could be rape, it could be sexual harassment itself, it can be penetration. We talk about physical, it can be when you beat somebody because, so that's one of the things that we see. For example, intimate partner relationship. If a man and a woman are in a relationship and one person happens to beat the other person, it's a gender-based violence. We respond to that. And we also talk about economic abuse. The man or the woman, either of them, is having more earning power than the other, and now you are starving that person, you are not providing for the house, can be an economic abuse. We also talk about psychological, wherein your own best form of treating people is when you tell them or you insult them, make them feel like they are nothing. You tell them all kind of words that demean them. Is also a gender-based violence, and it's a form of abuse.
Okay, so Sierra Leone being a developing country, I think faced a lot of gender-based violence. What would you say is the current prevalence of gender-based violence in the country?
I do not have an empirical evidence to tell you that, but what I will tell you is that the occurrence is happening. They are abusing people on a daily basis. For us, we most times look at sexual and gender-based violence, not gender-based violence in general. Our scope is more limited to sexual and gender-based violence, and the statistics that we are having are scaring, so to speak. Last year alone, we recorded about 2,762 cases that came through our 7 Rainbow centers, and among those numbers, it's scaring to record 29 boys or men who were sexually abused or molested. And I know it's going to be more scaring this year because in just 6 months, we've recorded about 24 of men that have reported sexual abuse. And the whole thing about it, it's happening now most times in homes. We are in even fathers are now being the perpetrators against their own daughters. So that tells you that the occurrence is happening and it's in the increase. And we even have cases where some people have to go to face it multiple times. We call it recurrence abuse. We have, for example, a case of a 15-year-old girl who was sexually penetrated by a 60-year-old pastor, after which they came to this center, the one that I just showed you, and we provided all the services that we are supposed to provide. The tragedy of it is when they returned home, it was the father who started sleeping with her. Yes, he did not stop until he got her pregnant, and they only realized she was pregnant when the pregnancy was about 7 months old. Mm-hmm. So that tells you how bad it's happening right now.
Really pitiful. Gender-based violence is really serious and life-threatening. What are some of the effects and consequences of gender-based violence, and how do they affect the victims?
It affects them in many ways, and the effects are innumerous. You talk about children dropping out of school. You talk about girls being sent off to marriage early. You have some situation, if a girl is being raped and the family want to compromise, or they will do, okay, let us just marry her off, whether she wants or not. You have a situation wherein it also results to maternal death, because if you are marrying off a girl as a result of gender-based violence that is below 18 years, and when she goes to the house, of course, if they have married her, the man is just going to sleep with her. And when she gets pregnant, she has to deliver. But if she's not strong enough to get that baby to come out, she will die. And as a result of that, we are having increased number of child mortality and infant. Some cases that will get when the girls are being raped, they will be stigmatized in the community. And it also leads to mental health. We've had cases right now that we are dealing with. It's at that point that the survivors mentally are not okay right now. Each time they think about how they were abused, each time they think about how this abuse have destroyed their life, it puts them in a state of thinking the trauma will lead to mental health. And it's so difficult. We've even had somewhere in some of these people will now become perpetrators, because when they are abused, them the only way they'll get out of it is when they also abuse people. And as a result of that, we still keep on getting increased number of perpetrators.
Mr. Lamin, from the beginning of our conversation, we've been mentioning girls, women. So this implies that women are more prone to gender-based violence, and they are liable to be victims. How do you think we can engage men in preventing gender-based violence?
Yeah, so it's very important. And I remember the other day, I was talking to a group of men and women and say, maybe it's time we change our focus on how we also encourage men to live with empowered women. Because this abuse is most time not just happening to women that are not empowered. We have seen women educated, empowered, and they're also being abused. Most time is because of there is no coexistence between them and the man. So what we are doing at Rainbo, in all of our engagement that we do, we most times want men to be in higher number of participants than women, because they are most times the perpetrators. So we just do not want to continue talking to the victims and the survivors and not engaging those that are committing the crime. So what we are doing, we have an initiative that we call Men Engagement. We are in men themselves, have clubs that they put themselves together and goes to communities, and these are most times our focal point volunteers. They are in their communities and they engage their communities, they call meetings. So what we did was to provide for them what we call VSLA. So these VSLAs are being managed by these focal point volunteers. They call their women folks in the communities, and also in all of those meetings other men are also called. That imagine if we support these women, look at what they are bringing to the house, they will be able to do more. So I think it's high time for us not to see men as just perpetrators, but also let's see them as partners in which we'll be able to end this. Because if they are continue doing this and we are not engaging there, I think they will think it's something that they should be bluffing about. But when we engage them, we make them realize that what they are doing is bad. It is something that you should not continue doing. Let them see that, imagine if this happened to your own child, how you be. And you have, I remember in a meeting, somebody one day wanted to justify rape, for example. He was so adamant that it's because of the way women are dressing and that's why they raped them. And somebody said, okay, here is the case. If somebody raped or sexually abused or molested a 6-month-old girl, and that girl happened to be your daughter, what do you do? He said he will kill the person. And they say, so is it because of the way the person dressed? So he later realized that that's not the thing. And he also agreed that it is high time that men themselves started involving in the fight.
How do you think we can raise awareness about gender-based violence, and why do you think it's important to raise awareness?
It's very important because they say information is the acquisition of knowledge. So the more information people get, they get knowledge, and also they know good from bad. And respond to gender-based violence is fine, but I think the most one is prevention. Let's prevent it before it happens in the first place. It's important because it's going to save more people in our communities from being abused. It's important because it's going to save a lot of resources that we put into response in the first place. If all of this happen, I think we'll have a society where we are all free. Nobody will go to bed being afraid that they will rape them, because marital rape is happening, and we are also having rape that is happening between families, and some people incest, and some people think they should not talk about it, more especially families. They are compromising and it's affecting survivors. So if we raise this awareness, I'm not sure there is a survivor who is going to suffer a trauma because she was raped. I remember we had a case of a boy who was forced to sleep with the aunt, and the boy was like, I can't do this to my uncle who has taken me from the village to Freetown, and I'm here to get the best out of my life. If you want me to sleep with you, it's going to destroy my uncle. And at the end of the day, the woman was like, if you can't do this, it's either you leave this out or I tell your uncle you try to sleep with me. So imagine if we had sensitized and we had raised awareness to that woman. I'm not sure that boy was going to go through what he had to go through.
I think before this time, Rainbo and other different organizations have been raising awareness. What do you think can be done differently to raise awareness against GBV or SGBV?
Well, the whole thing is, one, there has to be coordination. We have been raising awareness, but when it comes to how we are doing it at different organizations, I think is a problem. We are more focused. Every other organization is more focused on their own name. We want to do this as this. But I think it's high time we all come together as NGOs and have a concerted effort. Yes, we have so many groups that we are part of. We have the community of practice. Some big organizations, including us, are part of the presidential task force and so many other things. But when there is time to pull resources together, we are all not ready to put resources together. If one organization is taking the lead, every other organization will leave it to them. And I think that has been the challenge over the years. Every organization in Sierra Leone is not operating in all of the districts. For example, we have Rainbo centers in just 6 districts, even though we have safeguarding officers in all of the other districts. But their organization, they have more strength in District A than District B. So I think if we put all of those efforts together, realizing that in this district, this organization has more weight, more power than I do, and let's support them to do the work here instead of us just going with one people. I think it can be done. And also another thing we can do, I think it's high time we use social media, because we have been more focusing on the traditional media, the radio and television, and the age now that is suffering from this abuse or that are perpetrating the abuse is the new age. I mean, so it's high time. These are people, the TikTok generation, as I always say.
Gen Z.
Yes, the Facebook generation. And let's use their platform that they spend almost 20 hours from 24 hours in a day to sensitize them. So it's high time we make a lot of animation. It's high time to do a lot of infographics that will sensitize them, that just having somebody talk on the radio. It can't just be on gender-based violence. It can be a platform where they can share information, their experiences. And I think if we do that, we can better support them on how to raise this awareness.
Do you think the government and ministers responsible are doing enough? What new approaches can they adapt?
I think they are trying. One thing I'll tell you for free is there's a political will with this government. We all can bear witness. When the president came in 2018, we all heard about the rape of one Hannah Bokari at the beach, and that raises a lot of outcry, and the president had no option because of his political will and this thing so dear to his heart. He's declared a state of emergency on rape. I think that was a good step in the right direction, and also they amended the Sexual Offences Act that levied more punishment on perpetrators. And they have also launched the National Protocol on Gender-Based Violence. They'll talk about the response, the prevention, all of the things that survivors should get. So I think they are doing well. It's just left with all of us to come together to make sure we support that political will. And the ministers, both now and previous ministers of gender and children's affairs, have come with a lot of policies to ensure that survivors not only heal, but also they are hard and also giving the necessary platform to also educate other survivors. Also having the Office of the First Lady with the Hands of Our God Yes initiative, I think has also thrown light on the heinous crime of sexual and gender-based violence. And all of these efforts, I want to say, has cushioned the burden on NGOs in this fight.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. We hope they continue to do more. So you mentioned earlier trauma. Trauma is literally a very big part of gender-based violence. What kind of psychological support do Rainbo provide to their survivors?
That's our niche. Is one of the main things that we do here. We provide free medical treatment and psychosocial support to survivors to make sure we have a 24-hour services or that our services are close to survivors. We've just launched a toll-free line with AfriCell, which is 599. If you want to talk to somebody who you've been abused sexually or you are going through any sexual harassment, you can call that line and our professional counselors will give you the necessary counseling to make sure you come out from your traumatic experience. So across our 7 Rainbow centers, each of the centers we have 2 psychosocial counselors who are there mainly to counsel survivors, make sure these survivors do not blame themselves for what they have gone through, make sure they put them back in the shape of mind they were before they are abused. Because we always say you can hide the scar on the individual, but you can hide it in the mind. So one of the only way you'll be able to do that is when you do professional counseling, which is what we are known for. We've had even cases where people were not sexually abused, but people realize that they need counseling, they need professional counseling, and they take them to our centers. I think it is more about the professional counseling that we do for these survivors. We are able to form what we call the Survivor Solidarity Group and serve as an advocacy body to other survivors that are going through abuse, that yes, this is what we went through, but we should not allow this to define us.
How can people support a survivor of gender-based violence when there is no GBV actor in their areas?
Every society we live, everyone knows somebody that they trust. So in all of those communities that we go, the referral pathway we set is with the chief. So if any abuse happen in a community where there is no Rainbow, the first point of contact is you report to the chief, and from the chief they will be able to escalate it. But if it happens in the household of the chief, definitely we do not expect you to tell the chief. So you look for another person that you trust in that community. Or apart from that, if you want to talk directly to us, that's why we have the toll-free line now. You can call the 599, which is on AfriCell, or you can call 116, which is the line that is being operated by the Ministry of Gender and Children's Affairs, and they can give you the necessary support or where you should go. I just mentioned to you that the government has launched the National Protocol on Gender-Based Violence, and in that National Protocol there's a referral pathway. So we are taking this referral pathway to communities so that people know exactly where to turn to if they are abused. Also, the response is not limited to us. We also have one-stop centers across the country. We also advise people that have been abused that they can't reach the Rainbow Center to go to any of those one-stop centers. They can also provide to you specialized services. Where they are not able, they will also refer you to the Rainbow Centers.
So how does gender-based violence affect the community?
It affects community in many ways. I'll put this in a context. There is a girl at the age of 12 years old who was raped in a village, and when she was being raped, what the perpetrator did was to stuff her mouth with her own uniform. So he did whatever he did to her and let her go, and at the end of the day, that guy was arrested and he was seen 2 weeks back in that community. The whole community was on an edge, knowing that they have somebody like that in their community. So everybody was scared, not leaving their children to go to school. Some people were even afraid to send their children to the next neighborhood because they know that there is a perpetrator in that community. So that's just an example. It also affects community where you live and there is no trust. Because if fathers are sleeping with their children, who do you trust again? Gender-based violence, through what we call what we are you wearing, shows that all of us are not safe. You've had situations where people are raped in their offices, just like we are in an office now. You just go to talk to somebody and he closes the door and rapes you. We'll have situations where people are raped by their own doctors. You have situations where people are raped by their teachers. So this is how it affects the community. It affects our community to the extent that there is no trust. We do not believe anybody. And as a result of the gender-based violence, societies and communities have lost potentials. We have a case of a girl who was raped. She was doing very well in her school. After the abuse, she lost concentration. It was even hard to get her to go to school. We had a situation where a girl was impregnated by her own father, and it was difficult. We all know the joys of every motherhood is to raise your child, send them to school, let them come back and take care of you. So when you are old, you not retire to a rocky chair. Because of gender-based violence, we now have a situation where women give birth to their children, but they do not love them. They do not feel that affection with them because of the circumstance leading to how they get the pregnancy. So these are some of the ways gender-based violence is affecting our communities.
Mr. Lamin, what roles do you think youth can play in preventing gender-based violence?
We can be advocates because we are the perpetrators. If you watch our database, most times we had a situation where a 19-year-old boy raped a 97-year-old woman. So how we can play is us being advocates, sensitizing other people, and also let's come out of that naive thinking that we are investing so much in the ladies and we the boys are left out. As a result of that, we are going to spoil them now so that those people that are paying attention to them will not get. So all of us, we should see ourselves as one. We grew up in a society where as boys, we were raised up to respect women. I think it's high time we go back to that. Let us also take this fight personal. That's the only way we'll be able to fight it as young people. And why I say we should take it personal, most of these ladies they are abusing are women that we are going to end up to marry. If we take it personal and with that mentality, we'll be able to stop it and make sure that we lead the advocacy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bob, for sharing with us such extensive information on gender-based violence. Some of the key takeaways from Mr. Lamin were that we should take the fight for gender-based very personal, and organizations that are fighting against gender-based violence should have coordination, and social media can be one of the most important platforms to help prevent gender-based violence. He also mentioned that the toll-free line for Rainbo is 599. Whenever you're facing any kind of gender-based violence, any form of violence, you can call this number through AdvocAid network. I am at the Rainbo Center in Bo District to meet with a survivor of gender-based violence. Her name is Josephine. Hello, Josephine, and welcome to Waiting Now.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing okay, and you?
I'm great.
Okay, so how's today?
Well, we have a good weather for today. For now, I don't know.
Because no rain is coming. So, Josephine, what are you passionate about? What do you love doing?
Well, I think I love advocating.
Have you been doing it?
Yeah, I've been doing it because I'm presently working as an intern for Rainbo.
That's wonderful. So aside advocacy, do you have other hobbies?
Yeah, singing.
You love singing. Wow, that's amazing. And you have a wonderful voice. Have you ever done any song before?
Not really, but I sing with the choir of my church.
Gender-based violence remains one of the world's most widespread and devastating human rights violations. Globally, Sierra Leone ranks 162nd out of the 170 countries in the Gender-Based Violence Index. Discriminatory social norms about appropriate roles and responsibilities for women and men are key contributors to gender-based violence in the country. According to the Sierra Leone Demographic Health Survey in 2019, 60.7% of women and adolescent girls aged 15 to 49 have experienced physical violence and 7.4% sexual violence since age 15. Hello again and welcome to Waiting Out. Josephine, would you tell me what you were able to remember during your experience? What happened?
A masked man and some of his friends came in, and some of them were outside, and the one came inside, and he was asking me to give him money and some of the items that I had. So because I was afraid, he was armed. They were with so many items, cutlass and some other stuffs. Then I removed everything and gave him to him. And he asked me to remove my cloth, which I did. And he asked me to open my leg. He was just putting fingers into me, playing with me, doing all sorts of stuff with me. And then he came on top of me and he whipped me. After which, he slapped me and they left. So that was all I can remember.
So Josephine, did you face any barriers in reporting about your experience and seeking help?
At first I was, but because of the issue that happened before, that prompted me to do it, to explain so that I can overcome my fears.
So this perpetrator, was he brought to justice? Did you later find out who he was?
Well, my house mate, which was the caretaker of the house, which was the one I suspected, because he had the cutlass that they use. I knew the cutlass. So he was the one that was arrested. He was in custody for a whole week, but later on released. So we never found the perpetrator till now.
That's sorrowful. So what do you think needs to be done to break some of those barriers?
Well, some of those barriers, you have to just come up, say something, stand up for your rights, let the issues out so that you can fight for yourself.
Exactly. Being vocal is really helpful. Josephine, how has Rainbo helped you overcome gender-based violence?
Well, physically, mentally, Rainbo has helped me a lot. Presently, they are even paying my fees. And they are even funding things for me. They give me money to take care of myself, my school, so which I'm really grateful for. I'm really grateful for Rainbo.
That's wonderful. Josephine, I believe healing from gender-based violence can be a very traumatic process. What were some of the challenges you faced?
Well, some of the challenges were, especially the place I was living before, because after the incident, I could not stay there anymore. I had to leave the place because people were looking at me somehow. Okay, this is a weak victim. Some thieves came and raped her. So I was like, no, it was really difficult for me. Really, really difficult. But when Rainbo came in, everything just went so easy.
So Josephine, what advice can you give to victims undergoing gender-based violence but are not being vocal about seeking help?
All I can say, being vocal is the mindset. You just have to just have it in your mind that this thing that has happened should not repeat again. Because there are some issues that if you are quiet about it, they keep repeating. But if you come out and say it, I believe you will have a solution.
Exactly so. So how are you presently dealing with the community and everyone around?
Yeah, the issue happened. I'm no longer living there, so I believe I'm safe. The present place I'm at, no one knows about it, so I believe I'm okay because I'm out there helping other people. I'm still working with Rainbo as an intern, so that helps me a lot because whenever I see a victim or a survivor like me, I'm always pumped to talk to that person. It feels good.
Josephine, your story shows that healing from gender-based violence requires using your voice and seeking help from those responsible to provide support. It also proves that one can regain their dignity and be whole again after undergoing gender-based violence. Once again, thank you very much for joining us on Waiting Now, Josephine.
Yeah, thank you too.
Gender-based violence is a human rights violation. It affects not only physical health, but also mental health, and may lead to self-harm, isolation, depression, and suicidal attempts. Women and girls should be empowered with legal strength by raising awareness of laws and rights, and also providing support services directly to gender-based violence survivors. To help us unpack this, I met with Sesay, a Duty Counsel at AdvocAid. Hello, and welcome to Waiting Now.
Hello, Adama. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, you've been providing support for survivors and working with different organizations to ensure that gender-based violence is eliminated and the perpetrators are brought to justice. What are the gender acts in Sierra Leone?
Collectively, there are a number of laws, legal frameworks that addresses gender issues in Sierra Leone, but there are 3 general laws that are known as the gender laws in Sierra Leone. These 3 laws are the Domestic Violence Act 2007, which addresses all types of violence in a domestic setting against women. There's also the Devolution of Estate Act 2007 as well, which is also known as the Intestate Succession Act, which provides for protection of women in terms of land and estate inheritance in the event that a woman loses a spouse who dies intestate or who dies without a will. There is the Registration of Customary Marriages and Divorces Act, also in 2007, which outlines the legal framework for registering customary marriages and divorces, and that provides further economic and legal protection for women. In addition to these laws, there are also other acts that addresses gender issues in Sierra Leone. For example, the Sexual Offences Act of 2012 that was amended in 2019. And there's also the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Act, etc.
With all this gender acts in Sierra Leone, I still believe that most women do not feel protected. Why do you think Sierra Leonean women do not feel protected by the domestic violence law?
Despite the laudable progress in passing the Domestic Violence Act 2007, which addresses all types of violence in a domestic setting against women, I think there is very slow implementation of this law when it comes to addressing issues of domestic violence. Because of this slow implementation, it has resulted in underreporting of these cases against women and girls. So I think more effort is required at program and service delivery level to make this law become beneficial on a daily basis to women and girls who are victims of domestic violence. I think the delay and eventual inaccessibility to the majority of women who are in domestic settings leads to the impunity for domestic violence related crimes to be committed by perpetrators. Also, the level at which these cases are settled at community-based and family level interferes with the justice provision to properly address these cases. So we have most of these cases being settled unfavorably to victims of domestic violence. They are either not taken seriously or the victims are often told to cope with the abuse. We have had cases where women have been subjected to domestic violence for a number of years. It was like them being in a prison for the rest of their lives. We have had cases of women losing their lives in domestic violence settings. So because of the fact also that these cases are either resolved by the police and few are charged to court, and very few of those that are charged to court are successfully prosecuted, these often leave most victims of domestic violence feeling unprotected or feeling as though they have no accessibility to justice.
Law enforcement against gender-based violence has been in place for such a long time now. What is the compliance level of perpetrators?
I think the compliance level is very unprogressive at the moment. I think the interference with these cases at institutional and community level poses a big challenge to the enforcement of these offences against perpetrators. The community level mechanisms, such as traditional dispute resolution mechanisms, have always interfered with the justice service provisions that caters to the needs of victims of gender-based violence. This is why I think more awareness on the protection of the rights of women and girls and the effective prosecution of these offences is paramount to deterring them and ensuring that the perpetrators comply with the law in respecting the rights of women and girls.
You mentioned the community. What do you think is the role of the community in the prevention of gender-based violence?
In addressing the role of the community in regards gender-based violence, I think I would first want to recommend that programs be initiated at community levels to help implement community-level prevention of violence against women and have these communities serve as response agents to effectively promote the reporting and prosecution of gender-based violence cases. One important role of the community in the prevention of gender-based violence is the fact that community engagement that includes the participation of men, boys, school heads, traditional or cultural, as well as religious leaders be engaged to help them have a better understanding of the attitude towards violence against women and its implications and how to respond adequately to these cases of violence outside gender discrimination. Another important role in the prevention of gender-based violence also is to discourage the out-of-court settlement of these cases, especially at the community, family or police police level. I think communities must protect the rights of victims of gender-based violence with utmost importance. I think instead of negotiating or trying to settle cases of violence against women with the perpetrators, it is best that these communities discourage the out-of-court settlement of these cases, especially at the community, family, or police level. I think communities must protect the rights of victims of gender-based violence with utmost importance instead of negotiating or trying to settle cases of abuse with the perpetrator.
Thank you very much, Umu, for joining us on Waiting Now.
Thank you for having me.
Our next episode promises to be just as engaging. We'll continue to scope out issues that affect the lives of young people. Stay tuned for more informative stories and discussion. Remember, it's all about asking, waiting now, what's happening in the lives of young people? Until next time, keep amplifying those voices and driving positive change. This is an Engaged Salon podcast, funded by the Fund for Global Human Rights. Don't forget to follow us, like, and share the podcast. We rely on you to pass the word out there. I am your host, Adama Morgan.